What is going down, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Danny Golding TV. We are live for the first time in a while. And well, the last time, or for the last election, I should say, I actually went live the night before, the Monday before Tuesday election day. So I thought, since I guess the election kind of went the way that I wanted it to go last time, maybe it would be a good omen to do that again. I also had a lot of people on, kind of just chiming in with each other. It's a crazy political time we're in. Very polarizing time. So let's just all hang out. Let's all talk it out. And I got a buddy of mine that's gonna join me in a couple minutes. Are streaming live here on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. And the link is in the comments for anyone that may want to join. So tomorrow is election day between former President Donald Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance, against current Vice President Kamala Harris, and her running mate Governor of Minnesota Tim Walz. A few months ago, we thought that it was going to be another rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and thankfully that was not the case, because Joe Biden was definitely too old to serve another term, and heck, I probably don't even know if I could have, in good faith, even voted for him to serve a second term. I feel like I would be going against my own belief, and I would feel like a hypocrite for me as an 11-year-old saying that John McCain was too old to be president. So thankfully, Joe Biden made the right decision and decided to step down, which you could say he was forced to or whatever. But regardless, we have the younger candidate, Kamala Harris, who only just turned 60, by the way, looks really good for her age, along with the Governor Tim Walz as well. Now, my personal opinion is, yes, I did vote for the Democratic ticket. My friend who's about to join me has some different beliefs. But I personally think that, well, let's say there's a lot of false claims, for example, that I just would like to address. Now, January 6th, 2021, the Capitol riot or attempted insurrection, whatever you want to call it, for example, there's a narrative that there were no guns, when in fact 7 people were charged with having deadly weapons. Now, obviously, Donald Trump did not accept the results of the 2020 election and tried to overturn it. Now, you might say, well, the Democrats didn't accept the election results in 2016 either. Now, a lot of them, they didn't agree that he was the legitimate president, but the only difference is they did not try to overturn it. When Trump actually, and a lot of the Republican Party, had a fake electors plot in 7 states by creating and submitting fraudulent certifications of ascertainment to falsely claim that he had won the electoral college votes in those states. And there's a quote of where he actually said that he was just looking to find the 11,780 votes, which is one more than we need. So I think there's a difference between that. There's a lot of similarities, but there's definitely a big difference, because one side didn't actually try to overturn it. They said that they didn't think he was the legit president because of Russian disinformation on Twitter and blah, blah, blah. But they didn't actually try to overturn the election, which was a completely different thing. And I want to welcome Keeping the Faith JD in to the chat. Thank you for joining it. He thinks that Trump is going to win. He also says both sides riot, both sides do not peacefully protest. There will be riots this week, no matter who wins. Can't wait for it to all to unfold. You know, I somewhat do agree. However, last election, the narrative was that after the Democrats, that if Trump was going to win that election, get reelected, that the Democrats would riot. And obviously, you know, Biden won, so that didn't happen. But the only riot that happened, of course, on the Republican side was what happened on January 6th. Now, in the summer of 2020, before that, there were a lot of riots that happened in Minneapolis and in a lot of the areas where, like after the George Floyd protests that happened, which were not acceptable. And yes, I don't agree with a lot of the Democratic take that there were just mostly peaceful protests, but still, you know, I don't think you can necessarily compare it to an actual riot that happened in the Capitol itself. And another false claim that I'd like to get into is the whole idea that under Trump it was peace in the Middle East and no new wars, when in fact there were more American troops in the Middle East at the end of Trump's term, at the end of his only one term, than there were at the end of Obama's second term, and that he had dropped a number of bombs on the Middle East and Asia in a short period of time, outdoing both George W. Bush and Barack Obama. So just wanted to address that a little bit, and now I'm going to welcome my good friend Tyler Marshall in the stream. Welcome to Danny Golden TV. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Danny. Thank you for having me. And I just have one question about this other JD keeping the faith. I'm seeing that this guy's typing on the screen. Does he not have a mic?
Oh no, so how this works on StreamYard is the YouTube chat. When someone goes in the YouTube chat, I can pin their message on there. So they're not. He's only was watching it on YouTube, and I can show what they say up on the screen.
Oh, but there's not a way to get him into this live
Well, if he
conversation.
wanted to, he could. Yes, but I think he just wants to watch. I don't think he's trying to. He's not the one that I was gonna get on. I was actually gonna
He's been
get on my.
typing. He's got some opinion that he wants to put out there. I just think he should join. Be easier. Yeah. Though, but I mean, unless you had something else you wanted to say and add, maybe we could go off and debate on some of the topics that you just brought up.
Yeah, let's get right into that. Yeah.
Sure. Which one, as the moderator, did you want to go ahead and start with?
I guess I think particular, like you want to get into the January 6th, I guess, since was the thing that kind of started it.
Yeah, sure. I don't really know what the keeping the faith guy's belief is, whether he believes that it was a riot or an insurrection. I thought I saw him post a comment saying that, yeah, both sides riot. There will be riots this week, no matter who wins. Can't wait to watch it unfold. Yeah, I agree that it is interesting, and scrolling through Twitter, watching people fight is a good form of entertainment. I would just say, though, that the rioting, especially the BLM riots in the summer of 2020, those were in the hundreds. And then the one riot you had in the Capitol, which didn't cause nearly as much damage that was caused during the summer of 2020 BLM riots, and actually didn't kill anyone, is the fact that they try to make that day, January 6th, to be as bad as 9/11 or Pearl Harbor, and make it a lot worse than it actually was. And yet they totally ignored what happened during the BLM 2020 riots and downplayed it entirely and looked the other way. I think it's hypocrisy, and the idea that they say January 6th was an insurrection, anything more than a riot, I think it's just political hyperbole, and you're trying to advance a narrative, not debate on actual particular facts.
Yeah. No, it's definitely exaggerated, and both sides in the media, they definitely do. They definitely exaggerate a lot of different things. Now, could it possibly have been as bad if like people there like if there were more people armed and they actually decided to like act on it? Then sure, but luckily it wasn't. And actually, so I would like to welcome Bandwagoner 2011, my good friend Sean, formerly 49er Wildcat, into the stream. And I see you still got the classic Jim Harbaugh profile picture that you did last year when we do these streams.
I just want to say, first of all, I am so fucking pumped up for tomorrow. I am so goddamn excited. Tomorrow is going to be a lot of fucking fun. No matter who wins, tomorrow is going to be a blast. I'm going to be like...
a good way to look at it, definitely. Because most people will be really upset if it doesn't go their way, but I think that's the most optimistic way to look at it, that no matter who wins, like, let's just have a fucking good time, let's enjoy it.
It's going to be a fucking... Listen, it doesn't matter who wins. Tomorrow is going to be a shit fest, and it's going to be a shit fest that everybody is going to enjoy. Don't lie. It's going to be fun as fuck. This is the most excited I've been for an election since 2016. In 2020, it was really ruined by the pandemic because you couldn't go out to vote. You were all forced to follow these stupid rules of masking, social distancing, and such. But COVID is over. We're long past that. And now people are more than brave enough now to go back to the polls. And that is what I'm going to do tomorrow morning as soon as I wake up. In fact, I'm actually going to go view the whole election night in San Francisco at my dad's place. Yeah. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm also going to be partying with a lot of people in Discord geopolitics servers too. And a lot of them are all rooting for Trump to win.
Yeah, that should be fun. Now, since you brought it, the whole idea, you said you're going to vote in person, and I voted by mail. What do you think? Do you still think that's the best way to vote? Is that going to the polls like the classic way of doing that?
Of course. I prefer that everybody goes straight to the polls on election day or like early voting. I prefer everyone to go in person because there is something about the old school experience that you just cannot topple at all. I love voting in person. In fact, my very first election, which was a midterm election in 2018, I went to an elementary school to vote in my local suburban town of San Ramon. And let me tell you, man, voting in person is a lot more fun and interesting than mailing in your ballot. Trust me, it's far better. And also, I gotta say that as somebody who's like seeing the whole like Trump era from start to finish, because let's be honest here, even when Trump was gone for 4 years, from 21 up until like next year or so, I still feel like we very much live in his era. Like even when he was the president, even when he wasn't the president, you still felt his aura. You still knew his presence was very much there, even when Biden was in power. And he never went away. And credit to the guy where credit is due. He's currently favored to win. In fact, I personally am giving him the edge right now, like a 70 to 30% chance of winning. But I'm not dismissing Kamala Harris because you just never know with these things. Because 2016, in my opinion, was a massive wake-up call. It was the year when I felt like the ugly face of America was shown to the whole world, and that America was more divided than many people had thought. And ever since 2016, I would say that the American public has now become more engaged politically than it has been in the last decade or so, even during the Obama era. I mean, back then, like before like this era or so, before the Trump era, nobody gave a shit about midterms. But because of him, now the midterms are being treated in the same manner as the presidential elections, which are held every 4 years. So now every election, regardless if it's the presidential or the midterm now matters. So they're like equally important now, because like the purpose of the midterm is, it's sort of like the American people's like referendum on the current administration. Like if they think this current administration is doing a shit job, then they would go vote in the opposition party in, and then it would keep that president that they don't like basically on a leash. Like they would lame duck he or her for the next like 2 more years until they get another chance to vote in a new president. And I would not be shocked if Trump won. I mean, yeah, we got a guy here in the chat that believes Trump's going to win, and yeah, I don't disagree with that. In fact, my prediction, by the way, what I think the electoral map's going to look like, I don't think it's going to be a landslide for either side. It's going to be very close. Now,
it's tied right now. The polls right now are currently tied.
I think Kamala Harris is going to win the popular vote, but the electoral vote, I think, leans Trump. I mean, Democrats, ever since 2008, they have not lost the popular vote. The last Republican to win it was George W. Bush.
Yeah, 20 years ago, this was the first election that I remember.
I mean, let's be honest. John Kerry was so shitty that it was just not possible for him to win the popular vote. I bet even the old school, like Gen Xers would probably agree with me there. Like he was that bad. I mean, at least Al Gore had some sort of potential to him, but John Kerry was just dog shit. Just absolute dog shit. But anyway, what I think will happen electoral vote wise is I think Kamala is going to do better than people think she will, but she'll still come up short. I think Trump will win 280 electoral votes versus Kamala's 258. Kamala will win Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan, but she will lose Wisconsin, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. And it will be close, but I think she's going to get squeaked out by Trump in those key Rust Belt states. But again, as I said, I think she'll win the popular vote, but definitely nowhere the amount that Joe Biden won. He crushed Trump in the popular vote by 7 million votes. Like it was like 51 to like 47% of the popular vote, I think. I'll look it up right now. I'll be fast.
Yeah, it was 70 million to 70 million.
Yeah, it was 51.3 versus 46.8. Now, the biggest difference, by the way, if I had to describe between election 24 versus election 2020 is, first of all, this is a post Roe v. Wade era. And also, Gen Z has now increased in numbers. Back then, 2020, which was arguably Gen Z's first real election, because the only group of Zoomers that could vote at that time in 16 were all guys and girls that were like born in 97. They were the only ones who were allowed to vote. Otherwise, the rest of Gen Z were forced to stay home and keep staying in school.
Right.
So they had no choice but to watch as the country put Trump in power, for better or worse. But 2020, though, was really their first time going out. I think it was the kids that were born in 98, 99, 2001, and 2002 that were allowed to vote for the first time. But now it's guys who are born up to, like, I think 2006 who can now go out and vote. So it's going to be very interesting to see where Gen Z is going to vote because now they are a massive chunk of the voter population. But at the same time, though, besides Gen Z, you also have to look out for the overall female vote, which goes across all generations. The boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, and the Zoomers. Again, the aforementioned Zoomers. I think if Kamala is going to win this election, it will be because of the female vote. Like women who don't want their rights to be taken away from them by Donald Trump. But also the young people vote who probably grew up seeing Trump for like all 4 years of his presidency and didn't like him. But I feel like Gen Z's motivation to vote this year is sort of kind of crushed when compared to what it was 4 years ago. Like 2020, it looked like everyone was like voting for their lives. But 24, it doesn't really feel that way. I mean, a lot of Zoomers, from what I understand, seem to have lost faith in the political process because of the war in Gaza. Like, they seem to have lost a lot of faith in it because they see that both parties are supporting Israel. And it kind of, I don't know, it really hurts their reasons to vote at all. which is kind of ridiculous.
I think Gen Z will have an impact, like you said, on that too, because I remember seeing, like, before probably 2021, like I remember seeing on Twitter, like, oh, if Trump runs again, Gen Z will never let him win.
Look, Gen Z, I feel like Gen Z has sort of warmed up to Trump in the last few years, believe it or not, because the Trump era, believe it or not, or at least the actual Trump era, like before COVID-19 in 2020, I don't really remember life being overall that bad between 2017 and 2019. If you take those years to consideration before the whole pandemic started, the economy was doing well. People were making money. They were getting homes and such. Gas was affordable. New wars were not being started. Like, everything seemed contained during those years when Trump was in office. And I would also have to say that even when he lost his midterm in 2018, when the Republicans lost control of the House of Representatives, and which it resulted in our local Nancy Pelosi being Speaker again for like the second time, even then he didn't lose as badly in the midterms as Obama did in 2010. Democrats in 2010 got absolutely smacked. I think in the 2010 midterms, because of the low voter turnout, Democrats, let's see here, I swear they lost the midterms by a lot.
Yeah, it seems to be, I think, a common trend where in the midterms, where the administration that isn't in office will get an advantage in the House and Senate.
Yeah.
It depends on the quality of the administration in the office. I mean, in Bill Clinton in 98, after the Monica Lewinsky affair, actually voters didn't seem to care about that in a second term, and it didn't affect voter turnout, and they still increased the majority in the House.
Now, I looked at the elections of 2010. So here's what happened to Obama. Now, despite the fact he was able to pass the Affordable Care Act, and despite the fact that he was getting ready to get our guys to pull out of Iraq, the whole Tea Party thing and the whole Occupy Wall Street thing, no way. I think that was actually right before, I think, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that would have been 2008.
Oh, okay. Now, Obama's Democrats, they lost 6 Senate seats, even though they managed to barely hold on to the majority. So it went from like 57 to 51 seats for Democrats. Republicans absolutely crushed it in the House of Representatives. They gained 63 seats. And in 2014, in the second midterm of Obama's presidency, in the Senate, the Democrats performed even worse. They lost 9 seats. Like, they went, I think they went from like 53 or so seats, or no, yeah, 53 seats to like 44. They got absolutely smacked. And then they lost 13 seats in the House of Representatives, which gave the Republicans like firm control, like 247 seats. Then they lost a little bit in the election afterwards, which it was around the same time as Trump winning in 2016. Now, if I have to predict what will happen congressional-wise in this election, I think the United States Senate is as good as red for the Republicans. I don't see Democrats being able to hold on to Ohio. I think Montana is going to flip red. I think Arizona might be safe. I just think Kari Lake is a little too unhinged. And I feel like that state is a little too light blue. I mean, Danny, you live in a swing state, by the way, just to make things clear. So you would know how the people of Arizona are feeling.
Well, actually, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, the Arizonans would know for sure. And yeah, I don't think Kari Lake's going to win there. But yeah, I think Dems will hold on to that. Wisconsin is it's a toss-up. West Virginia is as good as gone. Manchin is without Manchin, they're not going to be able to hold on to that, so they're going to lose that. So yeah, Republicans should be able to gain around 2 to 3 Senate seats without an issue, which will flip control to them. And then I expect Democrats to flip the House Representatives by maybe 10 or so seats, which should result in Hakeem Jeffries being Speaker. So even if Democrats were to lose this election, like Kamala losing to Trump, they should be able to prevent Trump from advancing his agenda like completely for the next 4 years with Jeffries at the helm as Speaker. So yeah, this is something I would tell my fellow Democrats to consider if they are very pessimistic about Kamala, is that you have to consider the down ballot, because that matters just as much as the presidency. Because if you don't want Kamala, yet you fear Trump being too damn powerful, then yeah, vote Democrat down ballot. And I don't know, I'm splitting my ticket personally. I'm voting for Trump, but I'm voting Democrat everywhere else. I just don't like Kamala. I can't stand her.
I remember. I remember before the 2020 election, actually, when Biden first picked Kamala as his VP, that some
I was fucking against it.
She's gonna lose California. Like Trump's gonna win California now. Actually, and I actually wanted to kind of speak of that. I wanted to bring up what JD said. And he said that I think a lot of people are tired of their wallets being so empty. Money talks, and Trump will impact that. I've also heard tons of people who have never voted before say they'd vote Trump. And he also says there's also a ton of Trump support here in Cali. I see tons of Trump flags here in the Capitol, because he's in Sacramento, of course, where the state capital of.
Yeah, California. The thing is that Californians. Okay, here's the thing: California is as safe as blue for Kamala Harris, but let me tell you, Californians are voting for Kamala Harris not because they genuinely like her, but because they don't want another 4 years of Donald Trump. You see, it's the same thing with Joe Biden that happened 4 years ago. People who fucking voted for Biden didn't even like him. They just didn't want Trump back. This is the truth. They didn't literally like Biden. They just were too scared of Trump. They just voted against him. But now people are seeing that they were like, you know what, COVID's gone, and we kind of want the economy to sort of be a little more conservative again, like more hands off. So
and the fact that they got a break from him too is definitely an impact. A break of him at least being in power.
There's no pandemic to worry about, and obviously another problem is all these fucking wars, which were in a large way caused or enabled by the Biden administration. So that's definitely going to hurt him, or that's going to hurt Kamala Harris. And also, don't forget, all the warmongers from the W era a lot of them are all backing Kamala Harris. It makes it very difficult.
Evil. When he was a prominent Republican and sort of supported Bush, now that he's backing Kamala and going against Trump, you guys are all happy to have him on your side, even though 10 years earlier he was considered evil.
Now, fun thing is that Donald Trump is not even. Here's the thing: we compare it to most conservatives and like far righters. Donald Trump is not really that radical. He's not even that socially conservative. He's more. He seems quite moderate for what he is. He's like a classic old school '90s era Democrat, like someone who's very like socially moderate but kind of right wing fiscally. I don't know. I feel like
in the
most
90s,
of the country
probably still identified as a Democrat. Well, actually, I'm not sure, because I think I did hear an interview from them where he did say he would run as a Republican.
I know he was. Most Democrats from the 20th century. Democrats from the 20th century are going to tell you that they're literally all Republican now, especially the people from the South and also the Rust Belt region. They're all former Democrats. It's not that they're like literally like socially conservative. It's like they're going for whoever is going to give them the most money in their wallets. They're voting with their wallet in this election, and I believe that those people are going to go out for Donald Trump.
Well, the intelligent people are, but the younger ones, the Gen Zers that we were talking about earlier, especially the young girls, I think the conflict that's getting them to go out and vote is abortion. Although the older people actually have to provide for themselves, are the ones going to be voting with their wallet.
Now, another thing is, here's the thing though, the whole Project 2025 thingy, which the Kamala camp has been pushing, it's not going to go anywhere. And one of the reasons why is very simple. Number one, as I said, the next president of the United States is likely going to be a lame duck. They won't get shit done. And that alone is enough to calm people down. And second of all, I just don't think it's in Donald Trump's character to literally relinquish people of that many rights. I just don't fucking see it. And also, people have to also understand that even his running mate, J.D. Vance, despite his conservative leanings, you have to understand that the guy once lived here. and to be more specific, in California. And again, getting back to California, since JD's in the chat, by the way, I want to mention that most Californian voters are all living on the coastline, like next to the water. And all those people vote Democrat. Like the guys from like San Diego, the guys from LA, guys from San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose. All those people on the water are all going to vote Democrat. But the further you go in, where it's less populated, like the Central Valley, with the exception of Sacramento, I'm talking about like the areas like El Dorado Hills, for instance.
Yeah, like basically
Chico.
a lot of the inland part of California that it's not on the water.
Chico, like basically like Placer County, Bakersfield, Fresno. Yeah, you name it. Basically all the inland like areas of California, they're all going to vote Republican, and it always has been that way. Basically since the Clinton era of the 90s. And by the way, the last time that our state was considered a swing state, like an actual battleground state, was 1988, or no, I think it was 1992, when that was the last time this state was actually contested in a very competitive way. And I think Bill Clinton, he won the state by 46% of the vote. That's not a majority. And then George H.W. Bush won it he lost it 32, and then Ross Perot spoiled it for him by winning 20%. And
yeah,
fun
so
fact,
Ronald Reagan was the last
Republican
candidate to win
no,
California, right? Or
it was H.W.
Reagan.
It was Bush Sr. It was Bush Sr. in 1988. He was the last Republican to win California. And I doubt California is ever going to go back to the Republicans. It's cooked for them. They should forget of it. It's cooked. And you know what? In the long term, because we have to think about the long-term future of this country, one thing to really look out for is the shifting racial demographics. And in my opinion, this is going to long-term benefit the Democrats. As you guys know, migration is a major issue in this election. And one of the biggest concerns that conservatives have been talking about is the flow of illegal migrants coming in from the southern border from Mexico into Texas. Now, Texas, by the way, used to be a very reliably Republican state, like solid red, like as red as like fucking Mississippi or Alabama. But in recent elections, something has been changing a little bit. Like, for instance, if you look at Texas in like 2012, Mitt Romney won the state by around 16 points. So 57-41 against Obama. And then in 2016, Donald Trump won the state of Texas by 9 points. So 52-43. But then in 2020, Joe Biden lost Texas, but here's the kicker. He lost that state by only around like 5 to 6 points. So it went from 52-43 in 2016 to 52-46%. So Texas, literally, and the last time Democrats performed that well, by the way, was in 1976. Or no, I think 1992, if I'm correct, because Bill Clinton almost carried Texas. But he came up just short because of Ross Perot and H.W. Bush. I don't know, maybe Clinton just wasn't popular enough over there. But I digress. Republicans should be very worried about the Sun Belt. That place is probably going to be a future problem for them. Now, while the Rust Belt, in my opinion, is eventually going to go Republican in the next 10 years or so, I mean, I'm going to be a little old and probably won't give a shit about most things anymore. I mean, I got better and more productive things to worry about by then. They're eventually going to lose control of the Sun Belt. So I'm talking about states like Arizona, Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, all these states that are all battlegrounds now, because of these ever-shifting demographics ethnically, Democrats are eventually going to flip those states, but not in this decade, of course. Probably in the 2030s, but not in this decade. But anyway,
especially if it continues at the rate that we're going at, and Kamala wins, and the border policies remain where it's at. I mean, the numbers, especially these past 4 years, it's upwards of 6 to 10 million. And then say what happens for the next 4 years, and say we already have 25 million people here. And then, as he just said, they're all coming starting from the southern border, beginning in Texas. And then tie that in with the Democrats' other radical proposal that they're trying to push with the voterless ID. So and that border bill, they want to grant all these people citizenship because they know that they're going to automatically vote for the Biden or the Democrat, the Harris campaign. So yeah, 100%. This is artificial. It's manufactured, and unless we vote against it and stop it now, maybe down the road it's going to be too much to overturn.
Now, yeah, the thing is though, but the way how I think the Sun Belt will flip, again, it won't just be because of the migration. Another thing I should mention is there's a lot of people in the blue states that are struggling to afford housing there. And that's another way they're going to turn these states blue, is that you're going to see an exodus of more of these liberals or moderates or so who voted Democrat, and then they take their politics to these other states. And a lot of Republicans, by the way, that I've seen on social media, they've all been complaining, say, hey, why are you guys coming here and bring your politics here? Get the fuck out of here. Stay away. Don't come here. And, you know,
that's what I was saying about Californians migrating to Arizona.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that would be my family 20 years ago, actually. So it's funny. Yeah, I get a lot of hate in the local groups here for that, for having.
And then you're part of making the switch to turning the state to blue.
Now, it's not. Now, again, it will most likely will not be for another decade. But another thing I want to discuss, though, is the rise of independence, okay? Now, yeah. North Carolina, for instance.
So there's a prop that I voted yes on here in Arizona, Prop 140. And, you know, I'm not necessarily sure just because, you know, obviously any political commercial is going to, you know, make it sound the best. But the whole idea of it's going to be so all independent elected officials will be available on the ballots. And I guess it's just, instead of just having partisan Democrat Republican ballots, like you'd actually have independents on the ballot.
Oh, now here's another thing I want to talk about independence. Okay, now I want to bring up North Carolina because this is a good example of this thing that's ongoing in this country. American voters are becoming so disillusioned with both parties that it will become a lot harder to figure out who they really align themselves with in each election. North Carolina used to be overwhelmingly Democrat. Like, from what I understand, one Republican strategist said on PBS that registered Democratic voters at one point outnumbered Republicans 2-1. It was a major ratio. It was a difference at that time. But what happened was Democrats became more liberal. They got more left-leaning, for better or worse. I mean, it's obviously, for me personally, I'm a little more left-leaning, and I think it's a good thing. But fiscally, though, it was a major problem for North Carolinians. And then North Carolinians didn't really shift to the Republican Party. They became independents instead because they weren't satisfied with Republican policies either. Now, if there's anything that's going to carry Donald Trump in this election, it'll be very similar to like what happened in 2016. He needs those independent suburban voters. The rural voters are not going to carry you to victory like they did. I mean, like it was in the past. No, it's not going to come down to cities versus rural areas. No. The real front line of America's divide is in the suburbs. And this is coming from someone who lives in the suburbs. This is where the real battleground is in every single state. It all comes down to the suburbs. It's literally the most divisive area in any part of the United States. Suburbs are literally where elections are decided. Most people here don't really seem to align themselves with either Democrats or Republicans. They're true middle-of-the-road people. And I feel like they're going to vote for who I believe they think will result in them having the most money at the end of the day. And also, by the way, since Danny also brought up propositions and such, I voted on Danny, so now that you're back here, I wanted to mention, I just talked about how there's a big rise in independence lately and how less Americans are identifying themselves as either Democrat or Republican because both parties have been so bad in the last 10 years. JD, I would say, is a good example of someone who's like middle of the road that would vote Trump. Because here's the thing, when Americans vote Trump, at least these independent people, when they vote Trump, they're not voting because of his social policies. They're voting because he offers them the opportunity to give them a better chance of having more money in their wallets. Again, people are voting with their wallets here. And also, I wanted to mention and talk about the propositions that are on the California ballot lately. I'm going to vote yes on Prop 36, which, by the way, should penalize people for stealing shit from stores.
Yes,
I don't
would
know
vote yes on that as well. That's getting.
What the fuck was California thinking 10 years ago with passing that shit? Why did we do that? Like, that had to be one of the worst laws in the history of this state that we've ever passed.
Well,
Is that
actually,
the
to bring
law that
something up
doesn't-
in relation to Prop 36, and you said that you guys were both for it. There was actually a video that kind of went viral. It was in Kamala Harris, how she was being interviewed, and it was asked a question about that specific Prop 36, and she completely filibustered. She didn't give a straight answer. She literally, in respect to her for speaking the truth, she said, with election being so close, I'm not going to go ahead and take a clear cut on this issue. So she went ahead and played a political game on an issue, Danny, that you yourself say is common sense, and you would automatically vote yes in favor. But Kamala, when asked in an interview about it, she was hesitant and gave a hollow answer and didn't give a straight answer. I just think that's a typical politician. But it was just in regard to that Prop 36 you were talking about. I didn't saw that video with Kamala.
Now that you brought that up,
penalized if you steal more than $900 of stuff, because I guess the law now is if it's under like $950, you won't get charged with a felony for it, or you can't even get charged with it. Or...
Yeah, and the prop, I don't know, it definitely, that's why it was in circulation in Congress in the state, is because of the mass influx and increases in the looting that were taking places in places like Walgreens and CVS. So that bill was proposed, and she couldn't give a clear answer on whether or not she would be in favor or against it for the reason I just named. And you yourself said that you would automatically be in favor, but she couldn't give a yes or a no because she wanted to play political games. She knows that the left is against it.
Which is stupid, because here's the thing. It's not a conservative law. There is nothing conservative about wanting to put crooks in jail for stealing shit from stores that they should be paying for. That's not a conservative law. It's just common sense. Like, it blows my mind that these people, I mean, are they even leftists at this point? That is straight up anarchist thinking. And I think anarchism is one of the worst ideologies ever. Like, you want no law and order? What kind of a mindset is that? So you want us to go back to the Stone Age when we were like throwing sticks and stones at each other and beating each other with, I don't know, like freaking like bones or what? Like, what kind of thinking is that? We are not cavemen anymore. We live in a civilized society. Law and order, come on. Like, we cannot allow this like sort of way of thinking. Like, things are not supposed to be free in this country. You're supposed to earn it. It's not given to you on a silver platter. It's earned. And also,
that idea, that mantra goes against Kamala's entire political ideology, which is for not equality of opportunity, but she's instead for equality of outcome.
By the way, since we're mentioning Kamala Harris, right? Now, here's the thing. JD here, I mean, me, we're both like, and also Danny, we're all native Californians. We all saw Kamala Harris's rise to power from the very front seat. We literally witnessed her rise from being a lawyer all the way to being the vice president. Let me tell you something. In a sports analogy, Kamala Harris has had one of the Mickey Mouse paths to the presidency that I've ever seen. Ever.
Like the 2020 championships of both the Dodgers and the Lakers.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse run. And let me explain why. She literally got to where she did as the D of SF because she was dating Willie Brown. And then after that, I mean, like, I don't really recall what her run was as the D of San Francisco from 2004 to 2011. I think during that time she was actually serving with Gavin Newsom, who was the mayor of San Francisco. He was a lot younger back then. And she put a lot of people of color in jail too. Yeah, the thing is, she used to be the law and order person. She was quite right wing, at least for that time. And she was also the Attorney General of California, too, for 6 years under Governor Brown. I mean, she put a lot of dudes in jail. And it was literally her job. It was her specialty. In fact, I would be a little concerned if she won, because one of the things I should point out is if Kamala wins, she's going to really overlook the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and Department of Justice. She's going to overlook all those law and order agencies because that's where she really, really shines in. But obviously, for a lot of people here who don't really oppose authoritarianism, that's not a good thing at all. I think she would be a little too good at her job, honestly, if she really had a large oversight over those places. She put a lot of dudes, especially political opponents of the Democratic Party, potentially in prison. And but yeah, she had a real Mickey Mouse road to the presidency. I mean, when she ran for Senate, I knew she was going to win. But what really shocked me, though, was how fast she went to being like vice president. I thought she was never going to get as far as she did. I thought she was going to peak at Senate or maybe governorship or something, and that would be it. But when I heard the announcement that she was running for president or being potentially considered to be the running mate,
the primary was, and then of course,
I was against her.
2020 is when she ran for the first.
I was against her. I was fucking against her. What
were the reasons? Was it because of her past, like as a prosecutor, or the stuff really bad? What exactly was it that made you against her at that time?
I felt like she was too elitist, and I felt like she was not the kind of person who would really appeal to middle America, the America that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. You see, here's the thing. Besides her elitist background, you also have to understand she's a Californian from the liberal capital of the world, San Francisco Bay Area. That really alone, and also she's a woman, person of color. I mean, sexism, racism, all has to really come to mind here. Now, it's not because I'm obviously being too liberal here. That's not the reason. It's because that's just how many white Americans in the middle part of the country will think. They don't want someone like that, and they also don't want someone from the fucking San Francisco Bay to literally be running the country, because that'd be like another Nancy Pelosi. And when you take things into consideration, Kamala Harris is just a dumber version of Hillary Clinton.
Well,
she makes Hillary Clinton smarter.
I think she's a lot better of a candidate than Hillary Clinton. I think
no. Hillary Clinton, look, Hillary Clinton, in spite of her flaws, in spite of all the evil she's committed, she was actually smart. And here's the thing, she was terrifyingly smart. And thank God she lost. In fact, if I was old enough in 2016, I would have voted for Trump. I would have voted for Trump, even as someone as liberal-leaning as me. Hillary Clinton was, in my opinion, too scary, and I think she was overqualified for the position. And I think she would have been very hawkish, especially in foreign policy. And I don't think that's something most Americans would want. She would literally take us to back to W era, or if not, continue W era policies. But yeah, I actually want to hear your guys' perspective on things, because why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because JD suggested.
Yeah. No, and so for the Hillary, I mean, like you said, she didn't have, like Kamala, unlike Hillary, doesn't really have a whole lot of scandals on her resume, and also the idea of her, the first female president being a spouse of another former president. And I haven't even heard anyone else make this take, but I thought maybe that you could say it's a conflict of interest. He already, Bill Clinton already served 8 years, already served 2 terms.
I can understand that point, but wouldn't you rather have that than Kamala, who no one voted for? She was installed like software, and she was specifically picked to be VP based on her racial qualities and her gender. I'd rather have the conflict of interest than that.
You know who I was actually hoping would have been Biden's running mate? I was hoping it was going to be Tulsi Gabbard. She was the one who I wanted. More likable.
Definitely on the on the opposite side. That's
which is fucking grifty. Which is grifty as hell, but I can't blame her because Democrats
Well, because
going
she
for her
actually
head.
has a backbone. She literally served, I think, in Afghanistan or Iraq. But
Iraq,
I don't know if you saw that one interview one time on The View when she was running for president back in 2020 as a Democrat. She can actually stand up for herself. And if there's something that she doesn't believe in, she's not going to automatically parrot the talking point just because she's told to. So, yeah, no wonder that Joe Biden wouldn't choose her. She wouldn't
She was
go to the same
too-
meeting with them.
She was too independent, much too
Yeah.
independent of a thinker. And I don't think it was Joe Biden necessarily that picked the running mate. It was his handlers, which is the DNC.
Yeah.
And
I remember
it was a huge
predicting that she
mistake
would
that
have
they
been
didn't.
the nominee at that time. Maybe it's for those same reasons, but I do remember like predicting, because I think it was like in like June when she was picked. I remember thinking at least in April of 2020 that she was probably going to be the.
I remember being so disappointed that day when she was the running mate. And also, I wanted to mention to Tyler, too, again, Mickey Mouse selection or Mickey Mouse rise to power. She literally didn't even win the primaries. Joe Biden did. It's just that they pushed him out all because the man was fucking dying of old age and dementia. They didn't even have a legit roll call. Nobody actually tried to oppose her in the convention. The shit was rigged.
And you said something earlier, Danny, about Biden, whether he stepped down or he was forced down. I say it was the latter and he was forced down. And I'll tell you why. There's an Instagram post that's since been memory hold, but it happened 2 weeks before he withdrew his name from the ballot, where he said that he was duly elected, that it wouldn't be right if someone else, especially Kamala in that position, were to go ahead and be the incoming candidate, that the people had chosen him. He had proven himself over the years that he was the rightfully nominated candidate. That's what he posted on Instagram. That's a strong stance to literally go from that to 2 weeks later to going ahead and just giving it up to Kamala Harris, who he knew damn well no one in 2020 supported.
Yeah, and also I remember him. He also said that the only way I'd step down is God himself told me to. And
he doesn't stand for anything. He's probably an atheist.
Listen, I don't think he has much longer left on this earth. He will likely pass away either later on in this decade or early the next one. He's not going to live much longer. He's cooked. You could easily tell the man's going to go the same way as Ronald Reagan did. He died in 2004.
Right. You know, it's interesting what we're talking about, the fact that he couldn't campaign. But I've seen, and Dana, you yourself said, and then I don't know if you know who Sam Harris is. He had a debate with Ben Shapiro where he literally made the argument was, yeah, you know, he can't campaign. That's too much effort. But being the old, wise, you know, grandfather that he is, he can just sit in his chair, close his eyes and meditate for an hour and then give some, you know, extremely insightful precocious answer on what direction to go in policy. That came from literally second behind Christopher Hitchens, an extremely educated and intelligent and intellectual of our time, is making that argument. I think anyone without a bias can sit there and say, yeah, he shouldn't campaign, but obviously he's clearly not fit to be president. I mean, he can't stand up straight. He slurs statements. He forgets where he is. It's just, I wouldn't even trust him to be a manager at McDonald's. And that's not hyperbole.
He doesn't have much longer left. And also, I'll be honest, if he were still in his somewhat mental prime, like, remember what he was like 10 years ago, like during the Obama era?
Interviews with him 10 years ago, and you know, like even like during the 2012, when Obama was running for his second term, of course, you know, you see he's way sharper. And
if Biden was like 70 years old, I would vote for Biden over Trump. But that's not the case. He's 81 years old and he's crumbling before our very eyes. And I don't want a man to die in office.
Right. And another thing is, like, I don't even get why he should have said that he was only, maybe not right before but like after being elected in 2020, like he should have at least realized through 2021 or maybe early 2022 that he shouldn't have run for a second term. And like
by the way, believe it or not, guys, this is going to be a dark thing. I don't know if it's a joke or not, but I was so convinced that Biden was dying that I was actually planning, if he had won this election, and went for a second term and died in office, I was actually planning to go to the guy's funeral. Like, I was planning everything, pre-planning everything, like, because I knew, because the last time we had a sitting president die was John F. Kennedy in 1963. He was shot in the head in broad daylight. I literally had that belief that Joe was going to die in his sleep, and that the country, I don't know, I felt like the country would have been prepared if he went another time and he just died in office. No one would have been shocked. We would have all been pretty. Everybody was already talking about him dying in office. I mean, Dianne Feinstein died in office, and I actually went to her funeral.
If he had like won a second term, he would have just turned 86 at the end of his second term. So he
would have died. He wouldn't have made it, man. I don't think he would have.
I mean,
made it to
and
the finish line.
it's more just because like the stress of having that job too. Like Jimmy Carter just turned 100. Like, for example,
you want to know? You want to know an example? You want to know the example? A good example of a president who died in office because of the job itself. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He arguably served for way too long, even though he did a decent job when he was there from 33 to 45. He was there for 12 years, and what happened was he was already crippled, so that didn't help either. So by the time the World War II was coming to an end, he just didn't look good at all. Like, if you compare a photo of him in like 1932 to like 45, like one of his last photos, he was like a dead man walking. And I think he ended up dying of cerebral hemorrhage at his like summer home in Georgia. And I honestly believe that it was the job itself that killed him. And I think he was only 63 or so years old. He was in his 60s, I think. So that's not that old for today's standards, today's like biomedical science standards. But as for Biden, I can definitely not see him, if he had served a second term, survived all 4 of his remaining years. I just can't, unless they found a way to somehow like swap him out for Kamala. Maybe secretly, like,
I mean, it probably would have happened. He probably would have stepped down. Like, had he won a second term, he probably would have stepped down at least within a year.
No, I don't think that would have happened. I think what would have happened was they would have quietly, like, hid him away, like in his basement, in the White House, while Kamala was the one actually running everything. So in a way, in the last year or so, Kamala was the real president, while Biden has mostly been incapacitated because of his deteriorating mental health.
And yeah, JD said in the chat, like, he says, what's crazy to me is the lack of solid candidates. This is our crop of presidential candidates. Wild. I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, the guy on the other side,
it's been bad.
And then you have someone like Kamala, a lot of people think is way underqualified. Like, it isn't qualified.
She can't answer a question. She can't answer a question, especially when a voter in Pennsylvania asked her what she would do about Gaza. She gave the a 2-state solution. Well, that's not really you're not really answering her question, not giving an actual solution to the problem.
That's what everyone wants when it comes to that, but
the thing is, it's easy to tell where she stands on the whole thing. She's pro-Israel. I mean, her husband is Jewish. Her stepdaughter is Jewish. I mean, I'm not being anti-Semitic here. It's literally factual stuff. She's pro-Israel, funded by the AIPAC. Same with Trump. At least Trump comes out and says outright, I support Israel 1,000%. And I'm like, yeah, I strongly disagree with you, but hey, at least you're honest about it. And that's at least what I like about Donald Trump, is that he can answer a question, and he's very vocal about what he stands for and what he's going to do. I know he's not going to achieve everything. He's more honest.
He definitely did not do a good job answering the questions.
I mean, who can answer? I mean, they're both old.
In general, you're right. He definitely does like answer questions good, but in the first debate with Biden, I remember he was like not answering the questions at all. Like, he would go completely off topic. For example,
I'm gonna take a little quote from Charles Barkley himself. Older people don't get better. Sports ain't for old geezers. It's the same thing with politics. Politics are not made for like immature children, like in their teenage years and their 20s. It's supposed to be for like people that are like having a literal midlife crisis. Like people like from their 40s to their early 60s. That is the sweet spot for politicians, like age-wise. That's it's literally not made for old geezers and immature brats. It's that simple. That's why I'm against all these young people trying to run for office, because they're immature and not really qualified. I would say I'm not qualified for anything.
Right. I mean, 35 minimum age to even run for president. But like, I mean, someone like Trump, just like with Biden, is definitely like too old, and like his immaturity level is strong. He's definitely just like Biden. It
Well,
shouldn't cause a
yeah.
decline. I mean, he
Right,
he upped the microphone the other day, and
Right, yeah, to kind of throw my hat in the ring on this conversation in terms of age and youth, I sort of agree with the idea, especially as in a majority of the people in that hold higher office are all older. I don't know what the average age is. I would assume probably late 60s or 70s. But I don't think politics is extremely complicated. You don't need to be some rocket science to be able to do it. I think that we just need impressive people, successful people. And yeah, I can understand kind of the age that, yeah, you're too immature to do that. But I look at someone as Vivek Ramaswamy. That guy is a leading graduate of graduating class of Harvard. I think got a Yale law degree, and it became a billionaire through creating lots of, biochemical companies or something. But that's someone who's extremely impressive. Yet he's very young. There is, he is immature in an aspect and doesn't have as much wisdom as some of these other people in politics. Yet I would rather take him than some 60-year-old who's, just got it because of his beliefs, and he knew some rich people. They were able to back him, and so he could spend more in his campaign than the person that he was going against. I just think that we need impressive people, no matter how young they are. Yeah, there is an immature aspect, but you can make up for it in 10 years of age and youth with an increase of intelligence and success in the real world, in the business world, not in just the political world.
By the way, I should mention that JD Vance is 40 years old. He's the exact same age as my sister. So we got a fucking millennial on the ticket. So
yeah. Who's
here's the thing.
Yeah, he just turned 40 like recently.
I will say, I feel like the Trump ticket might actually be slightly younger than the Harris Waltz ticket.
Well,
I mean, at least Waltz
is the oldest. Yeah. If Trump wins, he'd be the oldest president inaugurated. Then you would have JD Vance, probably actually, I'm not sure if the youngest VP in history.
No, he would be the youngest ever. We have not had let's see. Theodore Roosevelt was very young. I think he was like only 41 years old when he became the vice president. Or no, I think he was already 42. I don't know, but thing is that you guys all know about. Oh wait, here it is. So the youngest vice president of all time. You guys are gonna be shocked by this. It was a man who served under the worst president of all time before the Civil War, James Buchanan. It was John C. Breckinridge. He served at the age of 36 years old. 36. We have not had someone that young again. So yeah, it's impossible to top Breckinridge. Impossible. But hey, you know what? 40 years old, that is ripe. That's just right. I have no issue with it. And if Trump were to suffer a stroke or a heart attack or something from eating too much greasy shit, hey, at least we got someone who's young, fresh. And, I actually saw some podcasts and stuff with JD Vance, and I got to say, I like the guy. Though I'll admit, I like Waltz too. I think he's better than Kamala Harris, and I would have absolutely preferred him running to be the presidential candidate over
I've said before, I
Harris.
wish he was at the top of the ticket, yeah. At least the ticket at least, yeah.
Again, I don't like Kamala Harris. In fact, ever since 2019, I kept a promise to myself that I would never vote for Kamala Harris for president. I don't like that woman. I despise her. I hope she loses, though I am not also dismissing her ability to pull off one of the biggest upsets in the history of U.S. politics. Though, I mean, I wouldn't really say it would be an upset because people are saying this is a 50-50 race. But for me personally, it would be an upset because so many people who I've been chatting with so far have all been telling me that Kamala is going to lose. So that's why I would think it's an upset simply because of the people I'm surrounding with. I mean, yeah, it would be an upset to me. And it'd be unbelievable if she won.
Now, what I wanted to actually get into is the whole idea. Now, of course, Trump had an assassination attempt. Well, you could say 2 assassination attempts actually against him. Only one where where there was an actual bullet that was fired, and the narrative on that side was the media saying he was a threat to democracy and all that was the cause of it. But here's a question: so how come a lot of his former advisors, and including his former Vice President Mike Pence, seem to share that same sentiment?
Well, Danny, I'll go off immediately off of the 2 people that I know you're referring to. Well, of course, with Mike Pence and then John Kelly. Mike Pence, you saw the Tucker Carlson interview, what kind of politician he is. I mean, that dude is greasy and slimy. And overall, I think that is a bad look on Trump, the fact that he picked him. But literally in that interview with Tucker Carlson, the most biggest contradiction that Mike Pence made was he wasn't for religious liberty or standing up to the persecution of Christians that was going on in Ukraine because he supported Zelensky and he didn't want to threaten the billions of dollars that he was funneling over to the Ukraine government. So he was able to overlook Christian persecution, even though he self-identifies himself as a strong Christian himself. And then the other one is John Kelly. That is the guy who said that Trump said soldiers are losers and suckers who served in war. That's a disgruntled employee. I think those 2 examples that you can name are pretty self-explanatory in themselves, and the reasons I just listed describe why they would oppose and speak and why they would be distressed in having Trump serve again, because they're disgruntled. And I don't think they're a good, accurate representation of the common man and voter, and they share a yours and I's value.
And we also have a former White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Matthews, former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security Elizabeth Newman. Her name is a little bit weird. And then, of course, the White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci. He
got fired after 6 days of being the White House Communications Director. Let me ask you: you have these all specific names, these old former Trump appointees or that were involved as cabinet. You don't see any similar parallels to the 2020 Russian disinformation about the 50 people, ex-intelligence agents, directors, or people you sold prominent positions coming out and saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. I think it's the same political tactic in a sense.
Yeah, it is. And another thing, and this may not have been true, but so Twitter, now Facebook and the other sites, they probably censored it for longer, but I believe, and I did not realize this, I assumed that it was censored for a lot longer than this because of how much of a big deal it was, but the whole Hunter Biden laptop story was apparently only censored by Twitter for 24 hours. And Twitter actually apologized for censoring it.
That may be true, the 24 hours, but keep in mind that Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, they all censored it algorithmically, and then the New York Post had their account locked and wouldn't have access to it unless they took down the Hunter laptop post. So I get the idea that this mass censorship on it took place for only 24 hours, but behind the scenes there were still other strings being pulled and other manipulations that were happening that were used to alter people's perceptions of the legitimacy of the Hunter Biden laptop.
Yeah. Sean, do you have anything to add on that?
No comment, really. I already know Hunter Biden's a fucking idiot. And I had a lot of revenge porn leaked out. And I'm going to be honest. What the fuck was he thinking by trusting all those women? They were literally filming that guy, and he didn't even blink. He literally has some of the worst optic I've ever seen for any nepotism baby ever. The guy needs to go to rehab, but also he needs to be put in a loony bin. That dude is so far gone. He's a disgrace to his dad, to his family, and especially to his brother, who is long dead too. No wonder he's the black sheep of the family. Hunter Biden is a complete joke. And there's a special place in hell for people like him, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely sad. I mean, you could maybe say that, his mother being killed in a car accident when and I believe he was in in the car itself, like in the early 70s, and he was
Bo
shot. That
was
may have
Bo was in the
contributed to-
same. No, there's no excuse. Bo was in the same accident, and he turned out fine. Hunter was always this shitty of a person. So it's a
The
Hunter
runs of
problem.
the
It's not
family.
really. It's bad genetics. So yeah, that's why. Yeah, I hate Hunter Biden. He can go fuck himself. I hope he rots in prison. I don't care I don't care what happens to him. I just hope he's never allowed to go out to like be a free man ever again. That guy needs to be locked up for all the shit he's done to women, to children, and especially even to himself. Also, but yeah, I'm voting again. As I said, I'm voting Trump, and again, not because I agree with him on everything, but because I feel like, I'm voting my conscience, and I'm also sticking to a promise that I literally had 5 years ago. And by the way, do you guys remember when Tulsi destroyed Kamala Harris in a debate in the primaries? You see,
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why I hate Kamala Harris too. She literally exposed the bitch live in a debate. And that, unironically, at that time, I thought it killed her political career for good. I thought she was never going to go anywhere near the top again. But the DNC was just not done with Kamala Harris.
Yeah, and that,
And it's
is that the
very
same debate when her and Joe kind of went at it?
Yeah, they gained up on her, and she got completely destroyed. She was clearly not qualified for the job, yet the DNC just kept pushing her to the top. She literally had a Mickey Mouse run to the presidency, and it's baffling because she's not that good. She's one of the dumbest people to ever get this far in power. In fact, if she were to win, our rivals in the world are going to take advantage of this, and they will not take her seriously. They will see her as a dumb woman. Very dumb.
You know, I'm not. What we were just talking about, the 2020 election for the Democratic primary, and Kamala, and we were naming some specific instances how she went up with Tulsi Gabbard. There was actually another quote that she had that was kind of back and forth with Elizabeth Warren, which actually I think people say that Trump is a big threat to democracy. I think Kamala is a way bigger threat to democracy because she and her side, what she represents and the way that they've acted, they are the side in the party of censorship. And what she said to Harris is that, or what Harris said to Warren, Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, is that she has been trying to sway Twitter to censor Trump. And that's before they actually completely removed him and blocked him off of Twitter. So just that whole idea that Trump is a bigger threat and danger to democracy. Well, democracy, the very pillars of our Bill of Rights being the First Amendment, I think, with freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, she actively engages in suppression and censorship of political speech that she doesn't agree with. I think that is a much bigger danger to the democracy.
As I said, if she were to win the presidency, she's going to have oversight over these law enforcement agencies. She's going to be very nosy in them. Like, she will put in someone who's just going to be her puppet. But in reality, we all know she's the one really controlling everything. And I don't think, and here's the thing, whenever people talk about threats to democracy, I chuckle and laugh at them because the thing is, this is all a bunch of fear mongering. And if anyone's a true threat to democracy, it's America's, it's ourselves. The country has to look itself in the mirror and think to itself, wait a minute, aren't we our own enemy? Because Russia's not our enemy. China's not our enemy. Like, if there's anything that's a threat to democracy, it's really the American people's lack of intelligence. That's true threat to democracy. It's our own selves. And also, by the way,
that if one candidate wins, we're going to lose our democracy. I don't subscribe to that idea at all.
Well, in a sense, I don't mean to get too. Sorry, Danny, finish your point. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
Oh no, you're.
By the way, I want to mention. Pardon me for interrupting you.
Go ahead.
I want to mention JD's thing here saying that you support transgender men competing against biological women in sports. I want to
I
say
responded saying that just because I voted Trump doesn't mean I agree with like every like single thing.
I'm against it too. I think it's ridiculous. I think biological women should literally be competing only against biological women in their respective sport.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's an idea of like a transgender league as well, but
Yeah.
back to what I was saying real quickly. So like, and it goes both ways with like the whole idea of, oh, no matter what side wins, we're not going to lose our democracy or our constitutional republic or anything. Like, for example, like on January 6th, like Trump saying like, oh, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Well, that's not true. We still have 4 years later, we still have a country. Like,
well, maybe that phrase, "a threat to our democracy," could be a tad bit too dramatic. But the essence of the claim of what they're pushing here, the idea of censorship, I think the foundation of our democracy, like I said earlier, the pillar of it is the First Amendment. That's the one that I'm most passionate about, that I care about, and affects me the most, and I can relate to the most, especially during COVID. So when I say threat to democracy, the idea that political party would come into power as they are in right now, and that they would manipulate and coerce behind the scenes the most powerful institutions which wield social opinion, and they can go ahead and censor certain opinions that they don't like. I think in a sense that, I mean, it might be an overstatement to say that is a threat to democracy, but that is shifting opinion towards a particular direction so that they continue to vote a certain way, so that a certain party will remain in power and cling to it over time and not have to relinquish it. So I think that 4 years we went out of a country, yeah, that's a bit dramatic, but what we're talking about is more long term. That's the direction I think we're headed into.
I mean, here's the thing. I just want to mention that the United States of America, a big misconception is that we are a democracy. And let me tell you this right now. Technicality-wise, we are not a democracy. We are a republic. And in a republic, we literally, we vote. I mean, like, the thing we vote on most of the time is that we vote, like, on, like, the people who, like, represent us when, well, in reality, let's be honest here, they don't really represent us at all. They're fucking scumbags for the most part. If we were a democracy, like, say, for example, Athens, Greece, or something, like, long ago, before any of us were even sperm or something, we would vote directly on the laws. Now, here's the thing. If America was really a democracy, we would be voting on every single important law. But let me tell you, that's not the case at all. And I feel like this country would be an even bigger mess if we were a direct democracy.
Right. Yeah, of course, difference between a democracy and then ours, a constitutional republic. You directly vote for the issues versus a republic. We vote for people to vote on those particular issues rather than we directly vote on them. I just think the idea, democracy in a sense, or a republic, the people that we voted into office, they're starting to vote a particular way, and it doesn't matter what beliefs they hold. And we've seen this throughout history, especially in the oral Warren courts of the 50s and 60s, that it's actually going to be the Supreme Court, which is going to be the one to decide this democracy, the republic, and the laws that all the congressional officials have to adhere to by.
While things are so kind of pessimistic right now in the republic itself, I am certainly, I mean, I'm voting simply what I think is best for the country, and that is splitting my ticket. And it's not because I'm a Republican or something, or because I'm a total fence sitter. It's because, no, it's simply because I just think it's better for the country if we give Trump a second shot, but at the same time that we also keep him in place to ensure he doesn't go over the line, because he was really, really trying to go over the line during his first 2 years, sort of like Obama did between 2009 and 2011. So I think it would be best for the federal government to be weakened. And that is why I am splitting my ticket. I want a weak federal government.
In what way do you think in the first 2 years you think that Trump overcrossed the line, as did Obama did with Obamacare?
I mean, he kind of like let me actually I mean, the whole like situation over the whole border wall thing, that was kind of ridiculous. But at the same time, though, I mean, if I had to compare,
we had the longest government shutdown of all time during it as well, too.
Yeah, I mean, it was really getting out of hand, I think. But here's the thing. It's usually normal for presidents, whenever they have like a trifecta to lose that trifecta in the midterms, like within 2 years. They don't have a lot of time. In fact, when Biden came to power, he really tried to push everything to get as much done, like the stimulus package, the aid to Ukraine, the aid to he was trying to get a lot of stuff done in a hurry because he knew he wasn't going to hold on to Congress for much longer. So, to his credit, he was able to get as much done as he could during those 2 years, from 21 to 23. But of course, when Americans look back on him as a president, we're going to see him in a similar light to perhaps Jimmy Carter, just an absolute disappointment. But at least Carter was a likable guy, and at least when Carter dies, everyone's going to actually be sort of sad about him dying. When Biden goes, I won't give a shit.
Sorry, my bad.
I also want to mention that tomorrow, regardless of what happens, I'm certain that whoever loses, there's going to be a bit massive blame game on who will lose, like, and how they lost. Like, Republicans will probably blame the defeat if they lose on voter fraud, maybe interference by Iran and China, maybe interference by the EU or something that favored Kamala. And then if the Democrats lose, they're going to blame it on Russia again. Maybe they're going to blame it on Elon. Maybe they're going to blame it on our shitty education system or something like that. Like, both sides are really going to find some people to blame. But the truth is, if you lose, you lose. Take the L and try again next time in 4 years. It's not the end of the world.
I'm happy you actually brought up voter fraud or election denial. That's actually kind of a good turn to turn this conversation into for a second. Danny, did you by chance watch that video I sent you yesterday? I know it was a little bit
not
of
all of it. I watched. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched some of it. I was even surprised.
Oh, wait a minute.
Carter on there, but yeah.
Wait a minute. You guys are both from Arizona. You guys were like at the center of like the whole voter fraud controversy in 2020, or at least the allegations of voter fraud.
Yeah,
they did. There was like a whole. Danny, Tyler, do you guys both live in Maricopa County by any chance?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh boy, tomorrow's gonna be a bloodbath down there. That's gonna be fun. Maricopa's gonna be a battle dome, if I want to say a battle dome, Gladiator Coliseum. Oh man, it's gonna be.
Maricopa County might determine the election.
I mean, if anything, I think it's more likely going to be Philadelphia County, honestly, because in order for Kamala to win, she needs to get as many black voters to come after her, and that's going to be hard. Because the black woman will definitely come after her, but the black men, though, that's going to be difficult. And it's the same problem that she's having in Georgia. She has to get basically all of them to come out in Metro Atlanta. She needs to get the black men to come out in Detroit. She needs to get them to come out in Milwaukee. I just named basically, and also, Raleigh, Charlotte, North Carolina. I named basically every single like major metropolitan area in the swing states that I could mention. She needs the black male vote and Gen Z, and basically most of the female vote in order to win. And I'm telling you, I feel like Donald Trump might perform better with Gen Z than people think, but it's not going to be with women. Of course, it'll be with men. So the question is, will Trump get enough Gen Z males to shift his way? Because he already shifted my allegiance to him. Though, again, it's more out of because I just think he'd be better for the economy and also because of foreign policy. Then, you probably get what I'm saying. Yeah. So, go on.
Yeah, and so what I was responding to Tyler's question about the video. And now what the video was is it's about a whole bunch of different Democrat, like even it's going as former, President Jimmy Carter, saying that Trump wasn't the illegitimate president. And my counter argument to that is yes, they thought that, and it was based on, Russia, the whole idea of Russia interfered by. Now, one of the guys on YouTube that I watch it addressed a whole bunch of different points is that the Russian interference was what it was a lot of fake Twitter accounts spreading misinformation, and he actually used a term for it called black propaganda, I think. Or
I don't believe in that Russiagate interference. I don't believe in it. I believe, what I honestly think? 2016, when Hillary Clinton lost, she did not lose because of the Russians. She lost because she fucking sucked. Literally, she ran a horrible campaign that no one gave a shit about. I mean, Tyler would probably agree with me here. Like, Hillary was a terrible candidate. She ran a terrible campaign, and she deserved to lose. And not to mention all those millennials who voted for Obama felt abandoned because Bernie lost. So she deserved to lose. And again, it wasn't because of the Russians. It's because Hillary Clinton sucked. It's that simple.
Well, the claim that they said was that it was the Russians, the interference, not just the bots on Facebook, but it was also through influence of leverage that they had over Donald Trump, such as the P-gate, or that they had compromising information on him, or they had business dealings with him. That's what helped him get elected. And the Democrats knew that they had no evidence to make those claims. Yet every time they would come out of their congressional meetings where they were discussing these issues, they would take issues, or they would take facts that weren't verified yet and speak as if they were dogmatic and incontrovertible, and what they were talking about was gospel and couldn't be questioned. I mean, it was Peter Schiff who basically did a modern day McCarthyism, where he went around and, waving around this book, or saying that he had behind closed doors of actual evidence that Trump colluded with the Russians, but we never saw it. And then the entire thing turned out to be a witch hunt. But what we were talking about in that video, Danny, it wasn't just the 2016 voter fraud or election denial that the Democrats engaged in. I don't know how much of the video you actually watched, but after about 5 minutes, it actually goes into different elections. Did you by chance get that far into it?
Yeah, actually, I didn't get that far into it, no.
Because I was really surprised. Did you know Joe Biden is an election denier? He said that the 2000 election was stolen. Nancy Pelosi.
You did text me that, yeah, and that did surprise me too. Yeah,
that's in the video. But also, it shows it was a widely held view among all the popular Democrats in 2000 and 2004, the 2000 with Al Gore. And perhaps there's some truth in it, that the Supreme Court overturned the election, that it was stolen, that they told the state to stop counting the votes. And if they had counted the votes entirely, that John Kerry would have, or Al Gore would have won that election. And then in 2004, it was the voting machines, especially in Ohio. That was kind of the early Dominion machines that the Democrats started and the Republicans went with, that they could be altered. And then in 2018, there was the midterm of Stacey Abrams, which it was Kamala Harris actually supported and went along with that election denial as well. So I would say that when you stack it up against which side engages in more election denial, especially over the last 24 years, it's clear that it's been one side which is engaged in 60 or 80% of it.
I mean, literally, the thing is that election denialism, it's always been a thing in America. I don't understand why people think it's a new thing. It's always been a thing ever since, literally, I would say, if I had to guess, 1824. Andrew Jackson, for example, he basically won the whole election, electoral vote and popular vote, but because he didn't have the amount of, least amount of votes in order to fucking actually clinch it, they had to take it to the House of Representatives, and the speaker ended up just stealing the election for John Quincy Adams, when in reality Jackson should have won that election. But fortunately, he got his revenge, though, 4 years later. But still, the thing is that, yeah, we've had in 1824, in 1876, we had it in somewhere during the 1900s, so 1960. 1976 was also very close. 2000, yeah, that one was controversial. In fact, I was actually
like a big landslide would have been the Nixon, or at least the one that was most of a landslide would be the Nixon one in 1972.
No, it was the 1994 Walter Mondale and Ronald Reagan, where Walter Mondale only won one state, and that was his hometown, Minnesota.
Yeah, Reagan actually made a funny joke during the holiday season. He said, "Oh, all I want for Christmas is Minnesota." Now, in retrospect, I don't like Ronald Reagan. I think he's the most overrated president of all time. But hey, I mean, I think he was a good guy. It doesn't change the fact he was a good person, but I don't really liked his policies in retrospect. It was not good for this country. But it is what it is. And I don't know. We just got to fix it. That's our duty as the younger generations here. And
I want to get to what
is,
Katie said. He says that times are different, technology better. We need to overhaul the voting system. Now,
I'm in favor of voter ID. I'm in favor of voter ID, by the way. It's not a conservative law. We should actually implement voter ID. It's not voter suppression. If anything, it's to ensure that our voting system is not only fair, free, but also, I don't know, like unfucked with.
Yeah, and I don't exactly know even how they they matched the ballot with the correct voter without it. And
Europe has voter ID, and it's mostly liberal countries there. They're not conservative. So it's not really a liberal conservative thing to say that you want voter ID. It's literally just common sense to cement the security of the whole voting system.
Yeah, and all the times that I've voted, the 3 times that I've voted have been a mail-in ballot, so I haven't actually even gone to the polls in person and voted yet in my life. So I don't but I would assume the way it should go is if you show your obviously a mail-in ballot is already linked to your name anyway, but showing your ID when you go, just when you buy legal weed from a dispensary or buy alcohol, it should go the same way as that. And I would say that I guess with the mail-in ballots, you could say that they could somehow find a way, to rig it. And it says I get the point, but I feel like it'd be overcomplicated to do it in the way of where you get exactly your number of votes to go a certain way or to change them.
By the way, guys, it's getting very late here for me. In fact, I gotta actually get up early so I can go to the polls, but also head off to class. So. Yeah, I want to thank both Danny and Tyler for allowing me to come on here. And I don't know, let's just hope tomorrow is peaceful, even though I know it's likely not going to be the case. But tomorrow's going to be a lot of fun, and I wish you guys the best. And I don't care who you vote for, just I hope everybody here stays safe.
Right.
Yeah, amen.
All right, have a good night, everybody.
Yep.
You as well.
Yeah. And with it actually being an hour later, I'm probably gonna have to maybe sign off in a couple of minutes as well. But Tyler, do you have any final thoughts actually?
Sure. Yeah. I'll cap it off with what JD Tech said about the technology. The technology is changing. Times are different. Technology is better. We need to overhaul the voting system. I would say that's not even just relates to the voting system. It's also other areas as well. I was watching a video, and it's a video I think everyone should watch on YouTube. It's by Cold Fusion, and it was talking about the rebranding of Mark Zuckerberg's personality, saying that 10 years ago he went in the social network played a part in this, that he was this cold-blooded, ruthless, maniacal figure. And he would then in the interrogations on Capitol Hill that he was this robotic figure without a personality. Now he's changing his stance and the way that the public perceives him into this more of a younger MMA fighter, someone who's hip, cool, wears chains, and dresses like Eminem in the early 2000s. I think it's deliberate. And the reason they're doing that is because, especially Facebook, these technology companies, what has been exposed over them the last couple of years, especially the scandals that have come out, that these companies are dangerous and they're not what they pretend to be. And also in that video, this is in regards to the technology comment, I wasn't aware of this, but these Apple glasses, these new smart glasses, how powerful these new technological tools are, and what they allow you to do in real time just by walking up to some random person on the street. Those glasses, you can identify their face, and through social media, it will look them up, and then it will find out all this personal information about them. And there's this video on YouTube of a random guy walking up to some girl that he's never met before and just listing out all these random facts. Hey, you used to do this. You ran this program as a director. I was also involved in it. We haven't met in 20 years. How's it going? Nice to meet you. So the aids that we're moving in, this technology is extremely powerful. It's changing the way that we live. I mean, agrarian society for this first 10,000 years, then crossed out with the invention of the steam engine and the industrial age. So many different causes, massive displacement, revolutions around the world arise. Half the world's enslaved by communists for 70 years in reaction to it, and you kind of barely catch your breath. And then you have a single digital revolution, and then which changes everything again. So we're in that digital revolution, and times are completely revolving and changing. It's scary to think where we're going in, and my belief is that I think that these technology companies, especially these social media companies, are not our friends. They don't care about our beliefs and our values, and they just want to nickel and dime and squeeze out as much money as they possibly can. So with this new technology, it's scary the age that we're heading into. That's the direction I would say.
Do you think Elon buying Twitter and then rebranding it to X, do you think would be a positive thing for that, or do you think it's just kind of the same as?
I think it's a step in the right direction. It's a positive. I think Elon has failed in certain areas, as in he hasn't been as pro free speech as he originally said that he was going to be. He has censored people, and he has changed the algorithm so that certain points of view are in greater circulation than other ones that he doesn't want propagated. I just think that all the big social media companies, Instagram, Facebook, Vine, TikTok, they all lean a particular direction, and we all don't know, and Google, Amazon as well, we all don't know the algorithms, but YouTube, and we all suspect that they all try to lead us in a particular direction. I'm good that kind of in the Coliseum and the different social media companies or corporations and businesses that are battling out to balance it out a little bit. Yes, I do believe that it's good to have a right-wing company, and it's not even a right-wing. Who cares what direction it leans in, as long as it allows free speech, which Twitter does more so than any other social media network. So yes, I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, and my only issue with, I guess, because he said, I guess it was at the beginning of this year that Twitter should be political, or maybe it may have been actually last, because it was probably actually before he rebranded it to X, or where he said it should be politically neutral. And then now with him supporting Trump, I guess you could say that's kind of hypocritical based on like his original take with that. But I mean, yeah, as long as it is free speech, I mean, that's really all that matters. But it's more of like, can you trust Elon to keep his word when it comes to
I trust Elon more than I trust some of those other people, and if that is what Elon said, I didn't know that, but yes, he went back on his word, and that's not the truth. Maybe that was his original intention all along, or he realized and changed and rebranded along the way to capitalize on an opportunity better. I just think that Elon, kind of the direction that Twitter is headed in. If you see the heads of Google, Facebook, Amazon, they all support a political party. That's obvious. Their corporations, they all identify with the left, and they encourage certain viewpoints in their company, and they shun and eschew and censor and diminish others. So I think that maybe that is a little bit hypocritical if that what Elon said was his original intention to keep it neutral, and now he's came out in support of Trump. I just think that you look at all these other big tech companies, all their leaders have all come out in support of the Biden administration, if not vocally through their actions, which is the way that they vote and the policies that they support. So that kind of behavior isn't mutually exclusive to Musk. It's ubiquitous among all big social media platforms.
Yeah. Now, actually, one more thing before we sign off. Actually, so the Washington Post actually did not endorse either candidate, which they actually got some backlash from the left. Actually, as a matter of fact, and people actually brought up their slogan. I guess democracy dies in darkness, like pointed out in the irony of this case, and yeah, I think that's Yeah, I don't have a problem with them deciding not. I think that's kind of maybe in a sense you could even say it's a good thing they decided to be a little neutral.
Right. You know, it's interesting just with the Washington Post and the New York Times. I think with these institutions, especially we look at their behavior in the past, and I'm referring to the Iraq War. I don't think it really matters what direction they vote and what political party they choose to endorse. Just as Woody Harrison, I think is his name, the former Indiana Jones, coming out for the first time in support of a political party. I think that if you're a single issue voter or you let some celebrity or other corporation go ahead and decide what party you're going to vote for, I just think that you're misinformed, and I think you're missing the whole point of politics in of itself.
All right, well, it's getting a little bit late, but yeah, Tyler, thank you for joining me, and thank you everyone for watching. Thanks to for
Who,
as
who was
well.
that other guy? The bandwagon. How old was he?
He's 24.
Huh. Pretty sharp kid.
Definitely, indeed. Yeah, he did a lot of my streams because I did some streams at the end of like December last year, and then within into January and into February, I did some stream, which I'm gonna start doing more of again. And yeah, he's always comes on as a guest. It's funny he uses the name Bandwagoner 2011. I guess the whole idea is people called him a bandwagon fan for supporting the Niners then, but he was like he was really new into watching, but that just happened to be the year where they've hired Jim Harbaugh and then made it to the NFC Championship game. So he was kind of making fun of how people called him a bandwagoner for
Oh, okay.
just ready to watch
I
it
gotcha.
then.
What was his name?
His name is Sean, actually.
I gotcha. Okay. And thank you for doing this, Danny. I thought you did a good job. It was fun.
Absolutely. Yep. So yeah, everyone, of course, stay safe. No matter who wins, let's hope for no riots or any of that. And yep, everyone